So we're going to outline the need for energy in living organisms. So this is a recap of what you've learned so far from primary school up to now. So recap, okay? So where do energy come from Earth? Of course, it starts with the sunlight, right? So the light energy. So sunlight is light energy. And then through the autotrophs on Earth, autotrophs is able to tap the light energy by the process called photosynthesis. So therefore, the light energy is used and harnessed to make organic molecules. So organic molecules are molecules made by organism. So it's organic. So can you give me an example of organic molecule, please? Rebecca Chan.
Protein.
Protein, very good. So protein, what else? Protein. So you've learned about lipids. You have learned about carbohydrates. Okay. You have learned about DNA, which is actually nucleic acids. So all these are, I don't put any nucleic acids, okay, up to here, okay? So they're all organic molecules. So the light energy has been harnessed by the plant, and then it's used to make organic molecules. So light energy converted to chemical energy. So over here, I put it as chemical potential energy, okay? Chemical potential energy, because chemical molecule potential means the energy inside this molecule can be further tapped for the cell to use. So how to tap by the cells to use? Both plants and animals, right, in the cell will carry out respiration. So this is where they will break down or oxidize those organic molecules to obtain energy. And energy will be released in the form of either heat, sorry, it's not either heat, it's heat and ATP. So it's heat energy and ATP. So ATP again is an organic molecule. So it is containing chemical potential energy that the cell can use. So for respiration, right, out of the energy produced, heat and ATP, how many percent of energy is ATP? Lau Huyen, Megan. How many percent of energy is ATP? Megan?
Is it 98?
No, not 98. 98 is just too much already. Okay, let's try Siva.
Is it 80?
18. 80?
80.
No, not correct. Xin Yin Ding? How many percent?
97.
No. Charmaine?
90?
Okay, who knows the answer? Type answer, please. Yes, Paywan, you're correct. 40%. Only 40% will form ATP. Hello. 40% will form ATP. And then the rest of them, which is 60%, will be released as heat energy. Always remember that. Remember this, okay? So this is an overview of the energy flow on Earth, okay? So now this organic molecule, right, they are considered as energy storage molecule because we obtain energy from the sunlight, then it is stored inside the organic molecule, and from this organic molecule it can be transferred from an organism to the next one. So from autotrophs to the herbivore, and then to the carnivore and omnivore and so on. Okay, so this organic molecule has got energy, is an energy storage molecule. So you can transfer the energy by transferring the organic molecules. So these organic molecules can be long-term energy storage molecule or short-term. So long-term storage energy molecule are those like glycogen, starch, triglycerides. So all these molecules are insoluble. So we store it in our cell, but it will not affect our water potential, so that our cell will not change shape. Whereas for short-term energy storage molecule, they are soluble, such as glucose and sucrose. They are soluble. Why soluble? Because we want to mobilize them from our storage organ like liver to the cells that need it, like our muscle cell. So it has to be soluble so that we can mobilize them in our bloodstream and also for plant in their sieve tube. Okay. So that's basic now. So let's go to the detail. So this is a recap of what are the energy that are being used by the cell in our body. So once ATP and heat energy are produced, they can be used by the cell. So for ATP can be used for anabolic reactions. So anabolic reactions are all the building up process, right, where the simple molecules are converted to complex molecules. For example, photosynthesis, CO2 and water are simple, converted to glucose is a complex molecule. Now, there are two more reactions here, which I will not touch on it until you learn photosynthesis. So we skip these two first. Once you learn photosynthesis, you will know the meaning of these two, okay? So other examples of anabolic reactions are all the building up processes. Now, for respiration, there's one step that need ATP, is we need to activate the glucose with ATP before respiration can occur. That means the substrate of respiration is glucose, but we need to add ATP to glucose. So this process is called activating the glucose. Then only the respiration will happen. So the first step of respiration is activation of glucose, needs ATP. Then the rest of them are all the synthesis of the biomolecules. So in DNA synthesis, nucleotide join together to form DNA, amino acids join together to form polypeptide, glucose join together to form glycogen, glucose join together to form starch, glucose converted to triglycerides. So all these are biosynthesis. So they are all anabolic reactions, all need ATP, okay? So the next thing is active transport. For example, sodium potassium pump is active transport. This is a very important process for nerve impulse transmission. So this nerve impulse transmission needs ATP because it needs ATP for this sodium potassium pump. Then the next one is movement and locomotion. So what kind of movement? Muscle contraction, whereby the actin and myosin filament, they will glide on top of each other. So that movement needs ATP. Okay, the movement between actin and myosin needs ATP. Then, of course, beating of cilia and flagella needs ATP. Changing the shape of the membrane by endocytosis and exocytosis needs ATP. So movement of amoeba, movement of white blood cells, all also need ATP because we change the shape of the cell. Okay, and then of course one more is the movement of organelles inside the cell. So please write in your notes there. Movement of organelles in the cell, movement of organelles on the microtubules in the cell. Okay, also need ATP. So all these three processes here requires ATP to do these works, whereas heat energy release is to maintain our body temperature. So these are the uses of energy from respiration. Okay, recap. So now we move on to the new things. Just now are the old things you have learned already. So new things, the learning outcome is you need to describe the features of ATP that make it suitable as a universal energy currency. So basically you want to talk about the structure of the ATP and how come the structure of ATP is suitable for it to be used as the universal energy currency. Right? So first you look at the structure, then we look at the meaning of universal energy currency. So if you look at the structure of ATP, it looks like something that you've learned before, right? So what is the something that you've learned before that it looks like? Samir, what does it look like? Yes, looks like what?
Nucleic acid.
Okay, so nucleic acid is a macromolecule, just like protein and carbohydrate. This is the monomer, right? So what is the monomer called? Samir? Monomer or nucleic acid is called what? Now, next week, I will start the point system. This week, I'm not starting the point system, okay? Because I need to add in the new students before I can start to give points, or else the new students will not get the points. Okay, so open to the floor. Open to the floor. What is this molecule? Very good, Peiwen, nucleotide. Yes, very good, Gan Chok Ming, nucleotide. So this looks like the nucleotide that you have studied before, right? So nucleotide. So you see that ATP is actually a nucleotide because it contains the ribose, the sugar, the phosphate, and the nitrogenous base. So you've got sugar, phosphate, and nitrogenous base. So it is a nucleotide. But it is a phosphorelated nucleotide because we've got two additional phosphate added to it. So therefore, it's called a phosphorylated nucleotide. Okay, phosphorylated nucleotide. Now, this nucleotide is an RNA nucleotide or a DNA nucleotide. Chu Jiaying. Sorry, I don't call you, I call you already. Okay, Chloe. DNA or RNA nucleotide?
DNA.
You simply tembak one, is it? -1 mark. This is not DNA. Okay, this is RNA nucleotide. Now, can anyone tell me why is it called RNA nucleotide? Daniel? Why is this called RNA nucleotide? Daniel?
Because of its bond.
No. Okay. Let's ask my Sufyan. Sufyan?
Because it's ribose instead of deoxyribose.
Very good. You see not? This R here stands for ribonucleic acid. Ribonucleic acid. Whereas if it's DNA because it's deoxy, right? Deoxyribose sugar. So DNA stands for deoxyribonucleic acid. Okay? So that's why this is a nucleotide which belongs to RNA nucleotide. Right? Okay, so that's RNA nucleotide. So there are bonds, covalent bonds that join all the 3 subunits together. So over here, this is a covalent bond. It's also called a phosphoester bond. I'll show you why later on. Okay, and over here is also a covalent bond. Is formed by condensation. So both of them are formed by condensation, means you remove water when you join subunits together. This one is also covalent bond, also formed by condensation. So all the bonds here are formed by condensation. Okay, so let us look at the subunit of ATP. So it's made up of the sugar, which is ribose sugar. Okay, so ribose sugar is a pentose sugar. And then sugar phosphate, you've got 3 phosphate, and a nitrogenous base. Nitrogenous base is adenine. So these are the 3 subunits. Then the sugar and the base together is called the adenosine. Okay, so adenosine is considered as the nucleoside. So do you remember the meaning of nucleoside or not? So what's the difference between nucleoside and nucleotide? Nucleotide versus nucleoside. Okay, can anyone tell me the difference between nucleotide and nucleoside, please? Tan Yung Yun. So what's the difference between this type and this side? Type means what?
I'm not sure.
Okay, open to the floor. Anyone knows? Yes, very good. Nucleotide means what? Nucleotide. Nucleoside, correct. Nucleotide means all the sugar, phosphate, and nitrogenous base are present. So they are tightly bound together. That's how I remember. All the 3 subunits are tightly bound together. So nucleotide is sugar, phosphate, nitrogenous base. That means this whole thing here is called nucleotide, okay, with 1 phosphate. But nucleoside, we are looking at this part here that point to the side, this part. So the sugar and the nitrogenous base is called the nucleoside. Why? Because the nitrogenous base point towards the side. So the sugar and nitrogenous base. So that's why you can see here, the sugar and nitrogenous base is considered as a nucleoside. And because this nucleoside contains the base adenine, so it's called adenosine because it's made of adenine. Okay, so therefore, this is where we get the name of this molecule from, ATP. So ATP stands for adenosine triphosphate. Okay, adenosine triphosphate, so ATP. Right, so next, so therefore ATP is considered as a phosphorylated nucleotide. You have added in 2 phosphate to this nucleotide, which is sugar, phosphate, and nitrogenous base. Okay, right. So let's look at the overall structure here. So it's a sugar, phosphate, and nitrogenous base, and 2 additional phosphate added to this. Now, just now I said I explained to you why is it that this bond here is considered as the phosphoester bond. So you learn in chemistry that ester is COOR, right? COOR is ester. So you call this ester bond. So now if I replace this C with a P, like here, so I call this the phosphoester bond. Phosphoester bond. Okay, versus this is called the ester bond. So very easy. So you're all learning organic chemistry, right? So organic chemistry is actually very easy. If you can see the similar pattern there. Okay, so this is called phosphoester bond. This one, I don't think I can call this phosphoester bond because it's not POOR. R means you need to have got a carbon inorganic, organic carbon. There's no carbon here. So I don't call this POOR. I don't call this phosphoester bond. I don't call this phosphoester bond. Okay. Only this one is phosphoester bond. This is not, because there's no R there. Right. So that's why I label these two as covalent bond. These two are only covalent. Only this one is phosphoester bond, which is covalent bond. Right. Okay, next. So this adenosine triphosphate. So when you remove one phosphate, it's adenosine diphosphate. Okay, diphosphate. When you remove another one, you are left with adenosine monophosphate. So ATP, ADP, AMP. Okay, so now I'm going to explain why ATP is considered as a universal energy carrier as well as energy currency. Okay. Now, universal energy carrier is universal means that it is an energy carrier in all the cells, in all the organisms on Earth. So in every cell on Earth, if you want the cell to carry energy inside the cell, only ATP will do this job. So it's universal in all cells, in all organisms. So bacteria will use ATP, plant cells use ATP, animal cells use ATP, okay, amoeba use ATP, all of them use ATP. So it is an energy carrier. So if it's an energy carrier, means it will carry energy from one place to another place inside the cell. Inside the cell, okay? So this entire box here represents a cell. So ATP will actually carry energy from one part of the cell to the next part of the cell. So which means to say the cell that needs to use ATP must produce its own ATP, and this ATP can only be used within that same cell. It cannot be exported out for other cells to use. So every cell, that's why, need to have got their own mitochondria, okay, to synthesize the ATP. So when it carry energy, where does it carry from where to where? So from where to where? It carries energy from energy yielding reactions in the cell. So in the cell got many reactions. So the energy yielding reaction is reaction that release energy. So you will start to, so when this reaction release energy, then the ATP will take this energy and then it will start to travel to other part of the cell that requires energy and then release the energy to those energy requiring reactions. So therefore it's a carrier. It carries energy from where to where? From energy yielding reactions to energy requiring reactions in the cell. Okay. Now it's not any energy yielding reactions will synthesize ATP. Only 3 types of energy yielding reactions in the cell is able to release energy to synthesize ATP. Only 3 specific types of reactions. Okay. So how is ATP produced? When the energy yielding reaction release the energy will be used for ATP to be synthesized from ADP and PI. Okay, now this PI here stands for what? This PI here stands for phosphate. So which is actually, the I stands for inorganic. So this I here stands for inorganic. So it's inorganic phosphate. Make sure you write all this into your notes. So what do you mean by inorganic phosphate? Inorganic phosphate is PO4 3 negative. Okay, or if you draw it like just now, it's P in the center, right? And then you've got double bond O and at the top there, and then you've got 3 more covalent bond, and these 3 more attached to O. And when this O is charged, when this O is fully charged, it becomes negative, negative, negative. So it is PO4 3 negative. So this is the inorganic phosphate. There's no carbon there one. Okay, so when there's enough energy that's being released from energy yielding reaction, then this condensation process can happen. whereby phosphate is added to the ADP. So that's why this process is called phosphorylation. That means we are trying to add phosphate to ADP. So we are phosphorylating ADP. So therefore, the product form is the ATP. Okay, so this is how ATP is being synthesized. So this is shown here in the animation. So now I've got a phosphate, inorganic phosphate, and the ADP. So when there's energy yielding reactions, release the energy. So the energy can be harnessed to join this phosphate to the ADP to form ATP. So this high energy bond will be formed by condensation. Okay. So next thing is, so what are the 3 reactions in the cell that allow ATP to be synthesized? Only 3, yeah? Number 1, substrate level phosphorylation. Number 2, oxidative phosphorylation. Number 3, photophosphorylation. Can you see all of them are called phosphorylation because why? It's about ATP synthesis. ATP synthesis means I add phosphate to ADP. So it is a phosphorylation. So 3 ways only. Substrate level phosphorylation, oxidative phosphorylation, photophosphorylation. 3 ways. So please memorize these 3 ways. What are they? You're going to learn it slowly as we go along for this chapter and the next chapter. Okay. So after ATP is synthesized, it will have to carry this energy to another part of the cell. So why can it do so? Is because it is a small molecule, and because it's small, it's soluble. And because it's soluble, it can start to move inside the cell from one organelle to the next organelle inside the cell. So it can move in the cytoplasm. So therefore, it acts as an intermediate molecule. Intermediate molecule is a molecule between energy yielding reaction and energy requiring reaction. Okay, intermediate. So it carries energy between energy yielding reactions and energy requiring reactions. Okay, so this is how it will carry. So once it arrives to the organelle that requires energy, it will release the energy. So how to release the energy? It will be hydrolyzed. Okay, it will be hydrolyzed. So this way, so ATP hydrolyzed to become ADP and PI, and the energy release is 30.5 kilojoule per mole of ATP hydrolyzed. So this value you need to memorize. Okay, this value you need to memorize, 30.5 kilojoule per mole of ATP. Okay, so therefore, the cell, you see not, the cell will have to pay this part of the cell with ATP so that this part of the cell will do the work. So you imagine the cell is like a Malaysia, it's like Malaysia is a country. So you go anywhere in this country and you want to get some services or product. So you call Grab car, you call Grab food, okay? Or you want to buy something in Sunway Pyramid. You need to always pay with Ringgit Malaysia, whether you're using cash or using your e-wallet, right? So you go anywhere in the cell, you want the cell to do any work, you have to pay the cell with ATP only. So that's why ATP is considered as energy currency of the cell. So the cell have to pay or to give or to trade or to donate ATP so that the energy requiring reaction will do the work. So example, it will do what work? Anabolic reactions, active transport, movement. Okay, what else? Movement, correct. Okay, so that is the meaning of energy carrier, which carry energy from energy yielding to energy requiring reaction. And then energy currency means the cell will have to pay the cell with ATP to do work, or to pay the organelle with ATP to do the work. Okay, so let's look at the structure of ATP now. So ATP, let's look at the past year question. A, describe the main structural features of the molecules. So you'll notice that if you print out your PowerPoint, you will not see the answer. So what you need to do is that you need to open your notes in the form of PowerPoint, and you have to click the animation, then only the answer will appear. Then you can copy down the answer. Okay, make sure you write down the answer into your notes so that you can refer to it when you study for exam. So what are the main structural features of the molecule? So you can talk about the phosphate, you can talk about the sugar, you can talk about the nitrogenous base, and so on. So the phosphate, there are 3 phosphate molecules, and then there's a nitrogenous base, which is called adenine. There's a pentose sugar, which is called ribose. And then we've got this phosphoester bond that join the phosphate to the sugar molecule. Right? Okay, next. So next past year question, explain how ATP is able to transfer energy in the cell. So how ATP can transfer energy in the cell. That means in the cell, you're supposed to talk about ATP will transfer energy from a region which yield energy to a region with required energy, right? So in a region where there's energy yielding reactions, ATP will be synthesized from ADP and PI. So step 1, ADP plus PI becomes ATP in the energy yielding reactions area. And then because ATP is small and soluble, so it can diffuse or it can move. Move from where to where? Move from energy yielding reaction to energy requiring reaction. So it can move. So when you say move, you must always tell me move from where to where. Okay. After that, how does it release the energy? ATP be hydrolyzed. Or you can write the full equation also can. Okay. You write inverse of full equation is considered as correct because it's this is universally correct. So ATP be hydrolyzed to becomes ADP plus PI. You can say plus 30.5 kilojoule, okay, per mole, or you can write energy if you cannot remember how much, right? So energy released 30.5 kilojoule per mole of ATP. Then idea refer to idea that's intermediary between energy yielding reaction and energy requiring reaction. That means you are you talk about this concept in your answer. That means I know that you know that the ATP will move from energy yielding into energy requiring reaction. That I give you 1 mark. Okay. Next, describe the importance of ATP in cells, giving 2 examples. So importance 1 mark, 2 example, 2 marks, altogether 3 marks. So we know that ATP provides energy to the cell. So this is a chemical potential energy. Chemical potential energy. So first marking point is for this one. Then 2 more marks for example. So give any example that you can give lah. Okay, example of, now you cannot tell me anabolic reaction. You must give me specific example of anabolic reaction. DNA replication, protein synthesis, lipid synthesis, glycogenesis, okay? And then a movement like muscle contraction, movement of flagella and cilia, okay? Movement of actin myosin, movement of organelles, okay? Exocytosis, endocytosis, all these things, okay? And then active transport means the sodium potassium pump, right? Okay, so I will stop the recording and continue record in the next